Hello there, grown black folks talk. The re-jailing of Bishop Lamor Whitehead and why black women need skill-based money. Now, for those of you who do not remember, and I'm going to tie this up in a bow for you, okay? For those of you who do not remember, Bishop Lamor Whitehead is the so-called quote-unquote bling bishop who was doing a church service and in New York and was robbed on live stream. And because he needed to tell his side of the story, we found out that he lost $1 million worth of jewelry that he was wearing at that time. And I want you to put a pin there in that his needing to tell his side of the story started him and finished his complete downfall. Yes, today, was it? Today's Monday, so it had to be today. He was remanded into custody. He had been out on bail after his conviction, pending sentencing. And the judge held a couple hearings last week and remanded him to custody. And he was chained hand and foot and let out of the courtroom today. So let me go here. I also want you to put a pin here. One of the things he said was that his wife had a gun shoved up to her, and they have more than one child together. But it was the $1 million that got people's attention. But put a pin there. Her name is Mrs. Asia Whitehead. People started asking questions because the neighborhood that he was ministering to, how do you have $1 million worth of jewelry on in a community that average income is only $40,000 a year? You don't have enough people in your church to account for you being able to do that from that ministry. And that's when people started digging all up into his background. And then he and could fight for the control of that church building, glory to God, church began to start. And they lawsuits back and forth. Well, what happens when you get into lawsuits and in discovery is that people start really digging all up into you. So people started digging into his relationship with Mayor Eric Adams, who's of New York City, who's going through his own situations and still is. And then they started looking at the fact that he was a convicted felon that had been involved in fraud before. About this time, a black elder sister named Miss Anderson decided to come forward and talk about how he had cheated her out of the money that she gave him in order to get her a house. And her son was a junior elder in the church at that time. Well, that blew up. He ended up in court. He was convicted of fraud while he was convicted. So they did let him out on bail. You know, he's a bishop, he's a member of the community. He has a wife and I think 4 children. So they let him out on his own recognizance pending sentencing. He decides to start a not guilty podcast to talk about his side of the story. Now, you have to understand, this is a convicted felon who's just gotten convicted of a new felony. You know, Miranda rights, you having the right to remain silent can be kind of important sometimes. So he's out on the podcast and he's doing what he does. Now, this is someone who's been observed to be very abusive and violent in his speech and to be very bullying and intimidating in person. It's been observed because of his behavior on social media and because of his testimonies of people from Glory to God. So he's out, and during this time period, he also gets a interview with fellow scam Bishop Jamal Bryant. And I say that with all authority because this man was going to have, during the COVID-19 pandemic, uh, drive-by COVID testing, but it would cost you $1,000 per. The thing is, the community found out and shut the foolery down. I'm also saying that because of his men, his also his women outside of wedlock and his babies that he has made without honoring any of those mothers with marriage. But Jamal Bryant has a bigger platform because he is perceived as being interested in civil rights. Y'all go find the videos when he was basically run out of Baltimore once upon a time because the people in Baltimore weren't gonna have that. And he wanted to give Bishop Whitehead a chance to tell his story. I'm sitting up there like, sir, that's a whole convicted felon you going hard for there. But he's a fellow bishop. So you just feel like he needs to have his side of the story told. No, he's been convicted. The more he talks, the more trouble he's gonna get in. Well, there was another woman, and she let it be known to New York State that Bishop Whitehead was out here allegedly behaving in a threatening manner, toward Miss Anderson and her son, and showing confidential documents that the government left under seal in the case under a protective order. Now, as it happens, fast forward, the government didn't care the least bit about the so-called threats toward Miss Anderson and her son. It's just another black single mother and her son who gives two dead flies. But what they did care about were those documents that the government put under seal being shown. That's what they ended up caring about. This is how Bishop Whitehead got remanded back into custody to await sentencing, got chained up by marshals and led from the courtroom, and is now sitting in jail waiting. It'll be another month before he's sentenced, and then he'll see how long he's going to be in jail, period. But see, when you do sentencing, here's the issue. Your behavior around your crime is just going to be uh, put into consideration. This did not help him to be remanded for additional crime, contempt of court, basically. This does not help him. So he's in jail waiting to figure out how long he's going to be there. Pam Esquire, the law intellect, has been following all these cases, and I have been fascinated as she breaks down the law around what happens when you get into the hands of the criminal justice system. Would you like to know who the only black woman in that courtroom was when Bishop Whitehead got remanded? Not his mama, his sister, or his wife were there. Pam Esquire. You know why she could be there though? Skills-based money. I need y'all to get an understanding about something. You know why his wife didn't have to be there crying and acting a fool? Oop, not that. Show you a different background. You know why? Because both of these women have tapped into the power of skills-based money. Okay? I want you to think through this with me, okay? Pam Esquire, lawyer, is a lawyer. A lot of her work is preparing briefs. She doesn't have to necessarily be in a particular place to be able to do that. She doesn't have to necessarily, she's not going to trial, she doesn't have to be in court to be at trial. She can do her briefs as long as she gets them done and files them on time anytime she wants. So if she wants to drive up and see a man who called her Baldy and all sorts of other names just because she was going through the legalities of the case, she didn't convict him before his time. She can do that. She has skill-based money. Asia Whitehead had a ministry before Bishop Whitehead came along. She put him on, not the other way. So what is she doing to support herself and her family right now? She's gone back to doing her ministry. She didn't have to come to the court and be crying and talking about what am I going to do. So the black women who didn't want to be in court, see what it looks like happens that his mother, his sisters, his aunts, and his wife, when they found out he had scammed that black mother and her son, they dropped him like a hot potato. They were not there. And if you follow the proceedings, you're going to find out they haven't been there for a while. One of the reasons Lamor Whitehead's defense of not going to be remanded and put back in jail because he had to support his wife and children, but the government just happened to know that he and his wife have been living separately for quite some time. Meaning that she has been using her skills to support herself and her children for quite some time. See, Mrs. Asia Whitehead married a convicted felon. And like many black women, has been made a married single mother with children. She hasn't divorced him, as far as I know. So she's now a married single mother and children because her husband is going back to do what recidivist, unrepentant felons do more crime and go back to prison. But she doesn't have to panic about this but she has skill-based money. I would like us to back up the train and think, why are black women so desperate? Now, let me be clear about something. And you may take this from what I learned from a black man first, because I said to him, there's a lot of black men who are felons. He's like, it's not, the number's not that high. I said, look it up. And I knew from having looked it up sometime earlier, the number was at least 25%. He's like, no, you're wrong. It's up to 30 to 33%. So if you insist on keeping your options inside a pool of black men, 1 in 3 are convicted felons. Now, I know some convicted felons who have repented and have turned their lives around and are excellent men. That does happen too. But the thing about it is, in the meantime, skills-based money helps you. And when I say skills-based money, I mean you do not have to go and beg a man. And I actually mean something very specific. We talk about Employment income, business income, and investing income. This one over here that's green, that's what I'm actually talking about. This is why I've used this background to talk about my crypto journey. Because when you learn how to operate in markets and you learn how to get what you need to get out of those markets, then you don't have to ask anyone else for money. You just go use your skills. Pam, that's why the law intellect is married. She doesn't have to even ask her husband for money. They are very much in love, and you can see how they interact on her channel. There's no problem there, but she's going to be okay either way. Asia Whitehead can communicate about the word of God. Not presuming. I haven't actually heard her. She does not have to ask anybody else. She just has to make sure she handles God's word faithfully to the people that she ministers to. That's it. That's skill based. You do not have to be under the heel and your life depending on someone who is not worthy of that level of submission. Because when you are completely dependent on someone else for your livelihood, you are submitting to them in a very real way. And the reason that evil men in this country are so eager to go back to a day in which Black women cannot, women, period, cannot have control of their sexuality, self body autonomy, cannot have credit cards, cannot have bank accounts, and cannot have jobs is because they want slavish submission. They know they're not going to be able to roll the clock back to 1864, although Arizona certainly tried it with their abortion laws. But they would be content to get back to 1946. But they were able to come home and sell rolls at the river to go home and sit down and make a sandwich. But see, it didn't work in 1946, and it because 1946 was succeeded by 1966. So, you would reset the clock and it would start over because once people have had a taste of freedom, they're not like to have them you take it away from them that easily. But the point is, at that time, men could be messy and average, and women still had to depend on them, so it was okay. Now we live in a time in which a woman does not have to go to a man for money, meaning that the men who cannot compete and cannot get above average may not have access to the women they want. If you really read comments from Manosphere and from men who are of that same mind of all races, there's not as many Latino men and Asian men. But then again, I don't read Japanese, Chinese, Korean, or Spanish. Vietnamese. Those are the four languages I can think of. I don't speak any of those languages or Spanish, so I honestly do not know if this conversation goes on, but it doesn't seem to as much. You have to be thoroughly Americanized to be doing the foolery, mainly. You have to be like some average white man who knows his grandfather had his life much easier because he did not have to compete with Black men, Latino men, Hispanic men, and then have his woman get a job and be like, you ain't doing good enough. You do not have to live in a society that has returned to the feudal society where the men who already have money and property can pretty much buy anything they want, including the good looking women. And you can go without having anything. They didn't have to live like that. They think they can go back. Nope, can't go back. But as long as women do not have skill based money, some man somewhere will always think he can get in over on top of a woman based on money. So we got a lot of channels. Stephanie Perry, Marissa Price, Pinky Girl Travels the World, A Daily Abortion, Rashida Dow, Lifting as We Climb, Black Women Making Money, Black Women Building Wealth, Mocha Mommy, Samri Bliss, the list goes on, and then there's me. And we're out here telling you, hey, there are other ways to do things behind having to clock into some man's corporation and be annoyed and made to feel like you are losing your life slowly, being killed slowly, like your foremothers were killed slowly, being reduced to a worker and a breeder. You do not have to come home to men who are not able to compete successfully for the entitlement they think they're entitled to. And see, let me just tell you this. For Black men, this is especially difficult. White men, at least, see themselves recognized as the hero of almost all movies. They are on the money. They are elevated in almost all history. Guess what group of men is the most completely shut out? Actually, Asian men are shut out a little bit more, but there's also China on the rise. So it doesn't take very long for an Asian man. How long has it been since Africa was on the rise? How long has it been since the Caribbean has been on the rise? Even Native American men, we remember Sitting Bull and Geronimo. So even their images, and they have casinos and they can afford to elevate their image if they want to. See, if a group of black men went out yesterday also and gave the middle finger at Mount Rushmore, that was going to be maybe a little bit more of a problem than it would be for some native tribe that has casinos. Native tribes have become so powerful in some of their old homelands that Christy Noem, who was very glad to tell us how she killed a dog and a goat gruesomely, cannot now step foot in 20% of the state in which he is governor because all the tribes have said, "Oh, you gonna treat Mother Nature like that?" Great Spirit said, "You can't come up in here." That's how much power Native men have in some places. Native women. So black men are especially frustrated because their image is being held up for disrespect more than anything else across Americana. So all the heroic path to godhood that a Greco-Roman tinted society offers is not open to people considered barbarians. And the word barbarian comes from Berber of North Africa. North Africans proved to be a little bit more difficult to defeat than than Greeks and Romans thought. If you're not sure about that, Hannibal from Carthage gave Rome the blues for 20 years. Carthage was defeated, but Queen Amanirenas of Kush, no, she wasn't gonna have that. She took Caesar's head off, Caesar Augustus' head, and the effigy that was forced to put up in her husband's reign, put it under her stairs. She, her daughter, her granddaughter, her great granddaughter, and her great 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 granddaughter walked over it. That's what happened, y'all, back then. But in this country, no, that's not the way that rolled. Not a. But if you go back and you look, though, Auntie Love from what Auntie's Converse with Love will tell you in a hot second. It's Harriet Tubman and Ida B. Wells. It's not Harry Tubman or Adam Wells. And the list is replete. Now, this is not taking anything away from Booker T. Washington, but Harriet Tubman will be on a $20 bill before he will. Harriet Tubman will be on that $20 bill before any of these black men will. Because black men are not allowed to have themselves seen as the image, and that's what makes them even more frustrated. Why do you think the violence against black women is so much greater than other groups of people? And what I'm saying to you is when you have skill-based money, you do not have to put up with it. You do not have to be linked with it. You do not have to be bothered. And that goes with every other race of man that has frustrated men that can't cut the mustard and are seeing what they think they're entitled to slipping away. Bishop Whitehead had happened to him what happens when his group of women is tired. See, black men in particular made a mistake. Black women went hard for George Floyd. So what black men who were serious should have done instead of being letting their frustrations run away with them is tell Kevin Samuels this isn't the time for this. We weren't going to be able to get traction about George Floyd without them. But instead, Kevin Samuels got up there and made an enemy out of black women. People who are in the streets for the image of a black man, willing to continue to sacrifice themselves. You just get up there and tell these women that they're worthless and that you should believe your man over your child if your child says they're being molested, that you shouldn't even expect to take a date at 5 or 1, anytime after 5, unless you're ready to expose yourself to having a baby this man does not want and an STD you cannot get rid of. He said all those things. He said the latter 2, 3 weeks before the Lord removed him from this earth. He crossed the line on that part about, you know, believe your man over your children. He crossed the line on black women just being worth just, exposing themselves to immoral, first of all, be immoral to get a man. Second of all, his price of dinner is worth you going back on the auction block. He got taken out of here 3 weeks later. But see, when you have skill-based money, you don't have to be bothered. His channel had 980,000 women who think 70% of a $1.4 million 1.4 million subscriber base who thought they had nothing better to do than to sit up there and be abused by this man and his followers. They used to love for him to do this and dismiss and talk some woman down. He had rhetorical skills. But see, a Christian woman gently came up there who was only age 25 and pointed out, "You were a youth pastor, sir. How are you up here talking to women like this? And see, she was young and beautiful, so he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't say anything to her. 3 weeks before he died, the Lord sent some Christian people to try to get his attention. But we, as Black women, allowed that to happen too. But one of the reasons is because we don't know that there are ways we can make money without going to any man. I'm gonna list some content creators here. I'm gonna need you to start listening to Black women making money. I'm gonna need you to start listening to Black women build wealth. I'm gonna need you to start listening to Mokomami. I'm gonna need you to start listening to Black Girl Stocks. I'm gonna need you to start listening to Stephanie Perry. She's got a bunch of resources where you can learn how to make independent money. I'm gonna need you to start listening to uh, Picky Girl Drives the World, Adelia Borshade, who does coaching on helping Black women get their money together to go from burnout to bliss. I'm gonna need you to listen to Sheeta's on the Loose, Rashida Dow, who works in partnership with Stephanie Perry. And if you want to pick up both Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dow on the same channel, I'm gonna need you to start listening to Exodus Summit. And then, if you really want to walk on my wild side, I'm also going to need you to start listening to Marissa Price and Lifting as We Climb about getting out of these toxic jobs. Now, a number of the women I've mentioned to you talk about the same things. There's some overlap there. And then I'm going to need you to invest $5. And I'm going to need you to jump on this crypto bull run. I'm going to need you to do that. Not because I need the money. I already have what I'm going to invest for this cycle and invest it. I could have sat back here in October and not spent money promoting this book, not spent money putting it together, invested it in more Bitcoin and left it alone. However, I was commanded by the Lord God Almighty to write my 5th book. And so I'm here ministering to you. Why? Because this is why. I'm going to need you to invest $5 and learn how to invest in the rest of the crypto bull run. Because again, when you learn how to work market cycles, then you can go make money in the market. Now, I can now say definitively, 7 months out, that those of you that have had this book since October 30th, when it was launched, had you invested $20 then, you would have had 60 plus now. Now, no one can say if Bitcoin is going to triple again. So I don't know if that's going to happen again. When you miss part of an opportunity, you miss it. But if you had gotten this book and invested $20 last week, you would have had $23 and around 30 cents now. Well, I don't have a lot of money, and so I don't have no. Because here's what I want to talk to you about. I want you to get very clear on this part right here. Okay? I'm not asking you, I'm not telling you to make yourself rich behind this book. You see what it says here? It does not say season the crypto bull run to live the dreams of avarice. It does not say season the crypto bull run to live a soft life. If you want to do that, I need you to listen to those channels we were talking about, right? I need you to listen to those channels that we were referring to. But as you go through that process, it's a process. Part of the process is getting market-based skills. Okay, so you only had $20 to invest, and you only have $20 and through about $23.30 now, because Bitcoin went up $10,000 since last week at about this time. That's $3.20 you didn't have to ask anybody else for. You got the skills, you got the knowledge, you applied them, and you profited. People who got the skills and got the knowledge are up $43.20 today. And I'm not mad at you, you didn't then. I'm saying to you, there are things out there that you can do so that you do not even need to be in argument with men like Bishop Lamor, Whitehead, Kevin Samuels, and the kind of men that keep trying to cover for them. You do not have to keep going to churches like those with Jamal Bryant and other pastors who are basically living on you and your tithes while exploiting you and exploiting your daughters down to their bodies and their souls, and teaching your sons that that's cool. When you have skill-based money and you know how to go to markets, you know how to use your skills, you can craft the life that you want. You do not need to be having the same, arguments with the same people over and over and over and over and over again. Now, if I choose to, there's a fun video I can do about when Christian men bully and get busted. The last thing on earth you want is to be out here using scripture out of context and run across me. It's a fun video I can do about that. But this is the one I need you to understand. Because I can take any of these arguments and leave them. It doesn't make any difference to me. Sometimes I'll get involved with things just so other women can see what they're supposed to do. And I'm so cold about it. I even list, sir, thank you for helping me accomplish this right here. Why? Because I don't need that man for money. I don't depend on him and men like him. I have ability to make skills-based money. And my writing this book was about you. Now, if crypto is not for you, I'm going to say it again. I want y'all to get this. Please get your eyes over to black women making money, black women building wealth, Mocha Mommy, Samri Bliss, Black Girl Stocks, Stephanie Perry, Sheeta's on the Loose, that's Rashida Dow, Adelia Borshade, or just pick up the Exodus Summit videos. There's enough resources in these videos that will help you move on. If you need to work with a job situation, Stephanie and Adelia and Rashida can help you with that. But also pick up Marissa Price and also pick up Lifting as We Climb Consulting Services. Now, I've given you this list twice. I need you, and I also, if crypto's not for you, you'll find something in there that will work for you. If you do buy this from the description, see, I'm going to list all these content creators, but I'm going to put my own book up here first. And I'm going to put up a link to Gumroad, not Amazon. Because on Gumroad, I'm able to do what now? Break off 20% of every sale for True Mystique, who designed this beautiful cover. You see it. You see it. Who designed this beautiful cover and who edited it so that it is easy to read and understand. Because sometimes she's like, you were writing casually, and this is a low college level. This is a complicated subject. You need to put a glossary in that too. Now I'm able to feed not just me, because again, it isn't just about me. I want you to eat so that you never have to be in a situation where you have to depend on some man who is not prepared to support you. Let me also say this as a personal note. Good men age and die. Frank, whose wife I might have been, died at age 37. Sergeant Love simply was too much older. And now we can see what being married to him at this point would have been like. Do I still love him? Of course. I always will. But between that and having aging parents and having the ministries that I have, that would have been too much. And that's why he himself foresaw it. Even good men get too old to be able to do it and leave you with the burden then. Even good men die young. There are good men still out there. But you do not need to put yourself into a position where you are dependent on any of them when literally you can learn skills that will allow you to go do what you need to do. And then when you meet a good man, if you choose to make this part of your life, or when he finds you, you can then also bring that and then teach your children. Well, if he's a good man, he'll be teachable. Thereby, you might be able to free him. I love hearing confidence with love. She calls herself the apex predator, heretical heathen. You know what she helped her husband do? I love hearing her talk about how she made a political and business marriage and how he is benefiting and how she was able to use the skills that she had to better his life, which betters their lives. So then when you do meet a good man, all you choose is Stephanie and Delia and Rashida will be like, let's just say you choose to spend the rest of your life in community with black women and not worry about being married. Well, then you still get to bring those skills to the community. What do you think I'm doing on this YouTube video? I'm single, but I also have all the crypto I need. I am doing what? Bringing skills to the community. But you have to have them in order to bring them. And that's why black women need skill-based money. If Project 2025 was enacted, here's the one thing that Project 2025 can't do. It can't take skill and money from you and knowledge of markets that you already have. In fact, investing might actually be all that some women have left, but you've got to learn it now. You do not need to be in a worse situation than Mrs. Asia Whitehead, who is going on about her business. Ain't nobody sitting up in court crying over that felon, convicted multiple times. She's got to take care of herself and her babies now without his help, because he done messed up and got remanded sooner. Even if he was taking care of the family, he didn't have enough control over his own spirit to be able to stay in a position that he could take care of them. This man has been out there wilding out online ever since this thing started. But she can have skill-based money. And the reason that we know what's going on from a legal perspective is because Pam Esquire and Law Intellect has skill-based money. And a supportive, loving husband who also has gainful employment, is doing very well. And so they are doing very well in life. They have a son who's a brilliant musician who's doing very well in life. You can do this single or married. The point is, you need it. It's time to stop thinking about being dependent on everybody else. Stephanie Perry has been saying this for a minute. American men are going through something right now. They see the American empire in decline because it is. They see that being an American man doesn't have the clout that it used to have in the world because it doesn't. They even see the American dollar in decline because it is. The world is saying it can do without American men. And it's getting louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. This is not something I want to see because when I say American, I mean citizens of the United States. My apologies to Canada, Mexico, and all the nations in Central and South America that ain't got nothing to do with this. I mean men from the United States. The world is becoming louder and louder and louder and louder about the time for the United States to be on top of the heap is up. Now I don't necessarily want to see this. I'm a citizen of the United States of America. And I know that people who do not have the children who have nowhere to go, and especially their parents who are not prepared to live in a global environment, this will be a disaster of unprecedented proportions. But see, I am doing all that I can to make sure that should that happen, people who listen are ready. Bitcoin spins everywhere. You can trade it for almost every major, I think every major local fiat in South America and Europe and Australia. For the Americas, period, all of them, Australia, parts of Africa, and Europe that there are. Black women, look, it's springtime. We aren't even dealing with winter is coming. No, you don't have to wait until winter. Kevin Samuels died in the spring. This month makes 2 years, May 5th. You need to get skills to get skill-based money. Now, I may do a show about crypto and other cyclical assets because when the crypto bull run is done, I might just do a compilation of what's available and what has a regular cycle. Because I've been finding out as I've been making analogies about how crypto works in terms of how to explain it to other people. So I may have my sixth book underhand now. We're not there yet. We won't be there for about another year and a half, but maybe a follow on. And True Mystique and I are not finished. We have more things to carry you through the bear that will help you do better in the next cycle as well. We got some other things working on. No details out here right now, but we'll be getting to that. Hopefully, she and I are both busy, and then I also have to be ready to pay her properly for everything that she does, because that's another video. Some black women paying each other. Maybe that's some more aunties paying black women. That could be fun. But there's other things out there. We're not done with this yet. But what I want you to do is get yourself in on the ground floor. I'm going to mention these channels again. I'm going to annoy the heck out of you. Black women making money. Black women building wealth. Mocha Mommy, Sammy Bliss, Black Girl Stocks, Stephanie Perry, Picky Girl Travels the World. That's Adelia Borshade. Sheeta's on the Loose from Sheeta Down. If you want to get some information from all three of these women together, please go to Exodus Summit. That's the channel to look at. Tons of resources just between Stephanie, Adelia, and Rashida. Tons of resources that they put together for by black women, for black women only. If you're not a black woman, listen to me, don't even bother. They ain't letting you in there because black women have a right to define spaces for themselves. All the other channels I mentioned are available for anyone to just go learn from. If you're having trouble in your job, Marissa Price and Lifting as We Climb Consulting Services, and there are a bunch of others, but I can't remember. Those are the top ones. And then of course there's me. You can look at my crypto playlist to learn about these things, have me walk you through some of these things for free. But when you're ready to think that you're worth $5, my book will be at the top of the heap, and it'll be the link whereby you also can make sure that you support True Mystique, who did that wonderful cover and made that book so everyone could understand it. I mentioned again, had you gotten that book in October and invested by January, $20, you would have had 60. I can't say how much the rest of the crypto bull run is going to do, but hey, every dollar that you're able to learn to profit from on this side of the market is money you didn't have to ask anybody for. That's the point. You do not have to be beholden to the Bishop Lamor Whiteheads with their unrepentant, ungodly, devilish, felonious behavior in any color. You do not have to be a sitting duck for Project 2025 and have no resources and to be forced into marriages that you don't need to be in and forced back into black women's traditional role. When they talk about tradition for black women, they're talking about from 1800, worker and breeder to death. You don't have to do any of that, but it is up to you. All right, have I barked at y'all enough? But it's important. I mean, we hear these stories about these black men. I could have done this video about Puff Daddy and Cassie if I wanted to, but no, that's a different video, but it's gonna end up in the same place because you chasing down some rich man because you don't think you have better options and you learn how to work markets and you leave all that alone. $5 is the difference between you not knowing and the difference between you knowing. Make a wise decision. $5 is the difference between you knowing and you not knowing how to work a market and get the money you need out of it and get on with your life. Please make a wise decision. If you don't want to do crypto, then do chocolate. I'll probably come back here and explain chocolate, flour, and sugar and why you need to invest at the end of the summer and hold those until Good Friday. I might actually do that video to give you an easy ground floor. It matters that much to me. You need skill-based money, black woman. And if you are any other race of people, you do too. Do you understand that we all are in a position where we all could be re-enslaved based on debt? That's a different video. But I want you to understand debt peonage is a thing. But that is a different video. What I'm telling you is ways out of it. You need skill-based money. I've given you multiple channels to listen to, okay? Where you can spend some time learning how to protect yourself, no matter what the economic situation and the political situation is. As long as markets are open, someone's making money in them. You can be among them. All right, enough already. Y'all have a good day now. Goodbye.